We approached him slowly. He was so weak that we didn't want a sudden movement to frighten him. We reached for him and carefully lifted him from the branch. He didn't resist. It seemed he had almost no strength left. Once he was finally in our arms, we realized just how thin and exhausted his little body had become. We looked him over carefully. He was in poor condition, and we knew he needed help as soon as possible. So without delay, we carried him toward the house, where he could finally be safe. He completed the journey he had begun on his own, this time safely in our arms. Once inside, getting him down from the tree was no longer enough. We needed to understand how badly he had been hurt. We placed him on a soft blanket and carefully began checking his condition. His body was painfully thin and exhausted, but he was still alive. In his first days at home, Shamshir spent most of his time resting quietly. His little body needed time to regain its strength. We placed food and water beside him, hoping that every bite would help restore some of the strength he had lost. Every day, we watched over him carefully, unsure how much his fragile body could endure. But beyond food and care, he needed something else too. The feeling of safety and knowing he was no longer alone. Slowly, we saw the first sign of hope. He began eating again. With every bite, it felt as if the strength of life was returning to him. He was still extremely weak, but he was no longer the helpless kitten we had found in the tree. In the home that had become his safe place, he slowly learned that he could trust again. Saving Shamshir was not only about bringing him down from the tree. His true recovery began from this moment. Days passed, and slowly the first signs of life began to return to Shamshir. He was no longer only resting. He was beginning to explore the new world he had found. Behind that fragile body was the same curious and intelligent spirit that had never given up. Slowly, he learned that this was a place where he could finally feel safe. With each passing day, the distance between his fearful past and peaceful present became smaller. He was learning again how to move, observe, and connect with the world around him. But what stood out the most was his intelligence and careful observation. He was no longer just a rescued cat. Slowly, he was finding his place in the home. His trust grew deeper with every passing day. He was not only starting a new life, he was showing a mind eager to discover and learn. We didn't know yet that this curiosity would one day lead him to do something extraordinary. Shamshir stared at the door for a long moment, as if trying to discover the secret of how it opened. After a while, his attention focused on the handle, the one part that could reveal the secret of this closed barrier. His first attempt was simple. By rising up, he measured the distance between himself and the handle. When his paw reached the handle, he discovered something important. This part of the door could move. He tested it carefully and realized that a small movement could create a bigger change. But Shamshir did not rush. He paused and carefully reconsidered the right approach. This time, with what he had learned, he was ready to make a more precise attempt. With patience and precision, he tried again, not through strength, but by understanding the right method. And at last, he opened the door. But he hadn't just opened a door. He had shown us that with patience, careful observation, determination, and a little feline wisdom, there is always a way through even the toughest obstacles.